Welcome to Ask Sean, where I explore all sorts of questions about life, relationships, and being human. I'm Sean Slevin, a licensed professional counselor and a licensed marriage and family therapist. And if you have a question for me, you can submit that anonymously at asksean.org. So I'm just coming back from a horseback riding lesson, which is often having time in the car and time on horseback. It's kind of various things will be percolating in my mind. And kind of this past weekend, I was at a conference, an art and faith conference, which is one of the kinds of things I love to go do, and making new friends, having all sorts of interesting, thoughtful conversations. And one of my new friends actually quoted a mutual friend who had said to them that precision came from the Enlightenment. And there's that conversation had all sorts of other things to it that are not what I'm getting into in this, but that piece about precision came from the Enlightenment, and that precision isn't always the answer. Is kind of was the relevant piece to what my friend and I were talking about. But I don't know, I've just been chewing on that. I mean, like there's something, precision has its usefulness, right? Like, I mean, I'm really grateful to be born in the time of history that I am and have lots of, I'm driving a car that depends on a lot of precision things working really tightly and in sync. And so like, that's great. Like that's super useful. And yet not all of life is lived in precision. And in some ways, I think some of the most meaningful things aren't about precision. Love and loss, sorrow and joy, contentment, longing. Like none of these things can be like precisely measured, or like, I don't know. I think in some ways like life is not, though we interact with precision and measurements and like I'm working on my canter and sitting the canter today in my horseback riding lesson. And so there is technique to that, right? There is skill building. There is like a range of like what is right and what is wrong, in terms of like what I'm aiming for. And yet it also is like, it's so felt, like it's not, I can't like memorize a table of like equations, that define the exact da 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 da. Even though maybe in theory you could break down like, okay, what's the perfect mathematical representation of, riding the canter well. But to actually ride the canter, you have to feel it. You have to feel it in your body. Like it's such an intuitive, experiential thing. And so in that sense, it's not lived in precision. It's lived in ambiguity. It's lived in the messiness and the constant adaptation and interaction and dance with the horse as the horse is moving along, and and their speed might vary a little bit. They might hit something funky in the ground. Like there's all these things happening, and there's yeah, I don't know, and it just feels like that's where so much of life is lived, right? Like I think we can crave precision in an unhealthy way because we think it can make us be safe. It can maybe protect us from pain. If I can precisely know the future or something, or I can precisely plan for everything, then maybe I won't have to suffer. And yet, I mean, what that starts to sound like, right, is like living our life inside of a test tube, a cold, sterile, totally controlled environment, like where, there's no real life happening, right? Like there's no surprises. There's no joy there. Maybe there's no loss or sadness there either, I suppose. But, laboratories is where we dissect things, and there's a usefulness to dissecting things, but like, that's not how you don't live your life through dissection. Like we live our lives in ambiguity. We live our lives in the mess and the murky and the unknown and the foggy and the gray. Which doesn't mean there aren't precise things. That doesn't mean there's not right and wrong. That doesn't mean there's not ethics. But I don't know. So coming back from my ride today and reflecting on the weekend, and just, the ways in which I like precision. I like to be precise with my words, for example. And yet so often I can't remember the right word, or I forget where I'm going. If you've watched more than one of these videos, there's not unusual for at some point for me to be like, now what was I saying? I had another thought. I don't remember what it was. But yeah, I don't know. That's my hair's coming out of my ponytail. So I don't know. That's, I guess, just things I'm processing and pondering that I wanted to share with y'all. And I guess the invitation to all of us is, can we bear to risk living in the ambiguity? Just being honest that life is ambiguous. That the things that matter most to us, we're not going to have precise answers about. I think about there's some things I'm pondering about my life and potential futures and whatnot that are exciting and scary, and I don't know what's best, and I don't know even what I want exactly, or what I need, and I think we all are in those places, right? We're all trying to figure it out, and which doesn't mean, I mean, here's the thing: is it doesn't mean that it can't be rich and meaningful. In fact, in some ways, it's maybe these are necessary ingredients to being rich and meaningful. Right? And so there being the surprises that we could have never known to even ask for, that come through, sometimes unimaginably hard things that we discover we're able to persevere through, but that we certainly would have never chosen. So I don't know. Yeah, just musing on the messiness of life and the beauty in that, the goodness of that the answer isn't to somehow get more precise, but how to live with all the imprecision about the things that matter most. So those are my thoughts for the moment. Until next time, peace be with you.